Well, I'm going to begin by asking you, Kevin, what was it about this particular screenplay to the choir that just appealed to you and attracted you as an actor?
I like that it showed how mean kids could be, as bad as that sounds. I wasn't familiar with that whole world, or that it existed, and I liked that it kind of exposed all of that. And you see how vicious these kids can be, and you see how vicious the teachers can be to each other, and how they're all kind of coexisting in this weird world that people don't really know is going on.
And did you ever have any kind of musical talents when you were a child? Could you sing?
Yeah, I always sang. I started off singing, but, you know, like to entertain the rest of my family. I was the youngest one, so I was like, pay attention to me. So I'd sing. But I never, the fact that these kids go to, it really exists, these types of schools, and they go at such a young age, and they're so dedicated and passionate about this really difficult music. I never could have done that. I wouldn't have lasted.
Because I mean, there is something sort of quite ineffably sort of moving about a boy choir. I mean, the sound is quite, it can be quite atmospheric, almost quite rousing, quite sort of chilling. And I was wondering, what do you think it is about a boy choir then that lends itself so well to kind of a cinema, an endeavour like this?
So when I went to the school and you see the way they're taught and the technique they use, I think, you know, those voices coming together, like the most pure form of voice ever in existence until it goes away, there's nothing else like it. And I think when you have these kids who are trained correctly and are trained in the right way, that when it's not even about one person, it's about all of them together. I don't know, and it's right. When it's in a room and it can fill the room, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it is almost, and that's why the director wanted to do the movie in the first place. It's because that movement of the voice and how they can move an audience is what really drives the whole film along. But I think I listened to a lot of Boychoir music in preparation for this movie, and with every single song, whether it was, you know, a happier song or like a tribal sounding song or an older song, it in some way it always did make you feel like the most extremes of emotions, because it does fill a room. It's so atmospheric. It's crazy. It's amazing. But that's why I think they exist. That's why people show up to see them when they tour around the world.
Because I mean, as you said, I mean, it does, having this kind of talent does come to an end, and in a way, it's quite a cruel business.
It is.
Do you think it's that sense of kind of that foreboding sense of kind of finality, which kind of provides this film with its poignancy? Completely,
100%. And I've had the same thing growing up, where like I felt like, why did nobody warn me my voice was going to change at some point? And so it was nice that this movie does get to deal with that in a sense, because all these kids are growing up and it's almost like it's the end of the world. Like, this is, I'm supposed to be the lead singer, I'm supposed to be the lead singer. It's like, well, really, there's a bigger underlying story here where it's like at some point you're not going to have this same voice to even compete with one another over. And I think that teaches a much bigger lesson. And there's a speech that Dustin gives towards the end of the film that I think sums up the entire thing, and it's my favorite scene in the whole movie.
And because you've been in a boy band yourself, I was wondering if you could relate to the characters within this movie in the way that the dynamic between kind of, well, I suppose you were a bit older, but kind of, you know, the musical dynamic amongst a group of people, kind of not competing necessarily, but just striving to be the best they can be.
Yeah, for sure. And what I really liked about it, how it didn't seem that much different from regular high school or middle school. You know, it seemed this is what kids do no matter what you're in, whether it's regular school or whether it's for something specific, like a choir like this. I just don't think you would suspect it, because the music seems so nice and pretty that you don't think everyone's kind of cutthroat underneath it. But I mean, that's what I liked about it in the first place. But I mean, yeah, I was older when I was in the boy band, and I wasn't so like this, because this, I think what makes this even more dramatic, like it's the end all, is because it's so formal and the setting is so formal, and that this means so much to them. Where us, we were just kids who weren't formally trained and we didn't know what we were doing.
So do you mind just telling us a little bit about your character and how he fits into this story then?
Yeah, well, the movie revolves around Sted, who is orphaned and ends up at the school because he has a really beautiful natural talent for singing and doesn't really know it. And my character is the teacher who teaches the new incoming kids, and I recognize this talent in him. And whilst he's having to deal with, you know, the kids who are already there and have their places and have their roles and have their friendships and how the whole school works, he's getting bullied and having to work through that. And then I'm trying to help him out, because I know how talented he is and how hard he's trying with the teachers who are basically doing the same things as the kids.
Of course, I mean, you get to work very closely with Dustin Hoffman in this movie. I mean, he's sort of well known for his quite meticulous approach to obviously to acting. What is he quite? Can he be quite difficult to approach on set? Is he very focused a lot of the time, or is he someone that you need to kind of catch at the end of a working day after you've all sort of finished?
No, he was extremely approachable throughout the entire day, which surprised me because I expected him to be like, you know, I've heard stories and heard how he's always super method, and luckily he wasn't like that. Luckily he was super nice and was really encouraging. We'd be in a scene together, and if he had an idea or I had an idea, he wanted to know and he wanted to exchange ideas and just like play around, and not even. He's like, we were doing one scene and he's like, on the next take, he's like, try walking out and not finishing your line. Just because we're like messing around, messing with the director, and hopefully, you know, sometimes those things actually end up being really good as opposed to, you know, necessarily being so regimented and sticking to the script the whole time, which was fun.
Because I mean, he obviously directed only recently himself. I mean, do you think that he's got that directorial instinct within him, and does he sort of show that even when he's just acting? Does he still?
Yeah. For sure. He talks about it, and I think a lot of times my favorite directors that I've worked with are actors, because they understand what, you know, they know how to talk to other actors and they know what to look for. And I think that movie, which was incredible that he directed, I think that definitely changed how he communicates, I would imagine, as well. Because he did, every time we would talk, he would talk, and I felt like I was talking to not just an actor, but a director/actor.
Have you ever given much thought yourself to one day sort of doing work behind the scenes, you know, producing roles or directing? Was that quite far ahead?
I don't know if I could direct. I don't know. I don't have when I was on Glee, there was a lot of people who wanted to direct episodes of Glee. It's like, even though I probably technically could, I knew how, but I don't really have the desire to do that as of now, at least.
And another, obviously, actor that you work closely alongside is Eddie Izzard, who's one of our very funniest exports, with a real national treasure over here. I mean, is he quite funny off camera as well? Because I mean, he provides this film with a real kind of spark, a real edge as well. And I just wondered if he's quite similar to that off camera.
He is, and I think he's more similar in the way where his character is super serious but kind of snarky, and that's how he is. He's just brilliant. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life, and I was just so happy I got to work with him so much, because he was great.
Of course, you just mentioned Glee before. Of course, you played Artie, who was obviously wheelchair-bound in the show. Do you find, even to this day, that some people are surprised when they meet you that you're not in a wheelchair? Does that ever happen? Do you ever get?
Yeah, it happens every single day, every day. Yeah, but yeah, I don't mind. It just means people were watching the show. I like to think I was just so good.
Yeah,
that
so it was a good performance.
They believed me. No, I just don't think people were bothered to Google it.
And according to IMDb, your next one is Men of Granite. Is that?
Oh yeah.
That's a real thing. Okay,
yes,
cool.
Yeah.
Because IMDb sometimes isn't always so reliable.
I know. I was talking about that earlier today, because half the stuff about me, I'm like, I've never even heard about that.
So I just wonder if you could tell us. I mean, that sounds quite similar to this. It's sort of story of the underdog, another kind of competition format.
It is. Very similar in a way but it's a completely different story, and it's about immigrants. And being this basketball team in 1940 in Ohio. But it is similar in the way where it is about the underdog, and it's about the everyday challenges that they face and giving them the best opportunity to succeed. So it seems to be a real theme in everything I do. It's not. I'm not stretching too far, am I?
And that's got Shirley MacLaine as well. I mean, when you're working with the likes of Dustin Hoffman, Shirley MacLaine, I mean, are you kind of subconsciously sort of taking a lot from them, or are you actually consciously taking it? Are you trying to learn from them? Because these are two of them, the best that have ever worked.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I got to work with Shirley MacLaine in an episode of Glee a couple seasons ago. But I only got to work with her in one scene, and it's one of those things where I do realize what these people have done and how great they are, and I was very consciously trying to just be a sponge and soak up as much as possible. Whether or not I did, I don't know, but I was trying.
And so I just find, of course, They Might Be Kennedys is another one that you've... I was just wondering if... I read that the shoot was delayed. I was wondering if it's been restarted yet, and sort of where into the proceedings we are with that one.
Well, with that, with a lot of films, it's like... It's all about, getting the right group of people together and then getting the funding for them. So, like, I've been signed on to movies before for years, and no one ever heard about it, and we never got to make it because the funding doesn't happen. So with that, I think they're trying to... We could do it for what they have as a budget now, but they want to make it the best movie possible, so they're trying to you know, they have a goal in mind, and that's what they're trying to get to. So instead of rushing it and forcing it to happen with a smaller amount of money, I think they're trying to do it the correct way, which is good. So hopefully it happens. It's one of the funniest scripts I've ever read. It's crazy, and it would be a blast to get to do a movie that takes place in the 80s.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Much appreciated. Thank you. Cheers.
Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey You